Imagine standing at a red light at midnight, engine idling beneath you like a sleeping animal, and the moment the light turns green, the whole street feels smaller. That is not a fantasy. That is a Tuesday night on the 2026 Harley-Davidson Street Glide. But before you get excited, I need to tell you something most reviewers won't. This bike has a flaw so specific that it has made grown men return it to the dealership within a week. Stick with me till the end, because I am going to show you exactly what that flaw is and whether it is a deal breaker or just a myth that refuses to die. Hey riders, welcome back to Bikes Review Lab, the channel where we don't just show you specs, we tell you the truth even when it's uncomfortable. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now, because today we're tearing apart the 2026 Street Glide piece by piece. And trust me, by the end of this video, you will know this bike better than most people who actually own one. Give this video a like. If you're serious about motorcycles, it genuinely helps this channel grow. And let's get into it. Engine performance and power. At the heart of this machine sits the Milwaukee-Eight 117 VVT. And that VVT part matters more than most riders realize, because variable valve timing means the engine breathes differently depending on how hard you twist the throttle. Harley claims around 106 horsepower at 4,600 RPM, which on paper sounds modest next to sport bikes, but horsepower numbers lie about how a Harley actually feels. This engine does not want to scream toward redline like a Japanese inline 4. It wants to shove you forward from almost idle, and that shove is what defines the entire personality of this bike. Torque delivery and torque curve. Here is where the Street Glide quietly wins the argument. Harley is claiming somewhere around 131 pound-feet of torque, arriving as early as 3,500 RPM. And that early arrival is the secret sauce. You are not waiting for the engine to wake up. You twist the throttle in second gear, and the bike just leans into the horizon. The torque curve is wide and flat rather than a sharp spike, which means the power feels available everywhere, not just in one narrow sweet spot. That is exactly what you want on a heavy touring bike, because nobody wants to downshift 3 times just to overtake a truck. Cylinder configuration and engine design. This is a 45-degree VTWIN, air, oil, and liquid cooled through the heads, and that layout is not just tradition for tradition's sake. The V-twin gives the bike its heartbeat, that uneven, pulsing rhythm you feel through your boots at every stoplight. Some riders call it soul, others call it a shake that never fully goes away. Both are correct. The engine is a big single unit, hanging low in the frame, which shapes almost everything else about how this bike carries its weight. Cooling system and heat management. Now here comes the honest part, nobody talks about enough. Because this engine mixes air cooling with oil and liquid cooling only at the heads, riding this bike in slow traffic during a hot summer afternoon means you will feel heat radiating onto your right leg. Harley has improved this generation after generation, and the 117 handles it better than older Milwaukee-Eight units. But if you live somewhere with brutal heat and lots of stop-and-go city riding, this is something you need to test ride before you buy, not just watch in a review. Engine smoothness and vibration levels. At idle, this bike trembles like it is impatient to move. That vibration is part of the Harley identity. And honestly, most buyers actually want to feel it, but there is a difference between character and fatigue, and on longer highway stretches, some riders report a slight buzz through the handlebars and foot pegs after 2 or 3 hours straight. It is not violent, it is not damaging, but it is there. And if you are the type of rider who wants surgical smoothness like a Honda Goldwing, this engine will remind you constantly that you chose a Harley instead. Fuel efficiency. In real-world riding, on paper, Harley estimates roughly 45 miles per gallon for this generation, which is actually a solid number for a bike this size and weight. In real-world mixed riding, expect that number to drop a bit if you are aggressive with the throttle, maybe into the high 30s, and climb a bit higher if you are cruising steady on the highway. It is not a fuel sipper, but it is far from thirsty either, and that balance matters when you are planning a 2,000-mile road trip and counting gas station stops. Power-to-weight ratio. This is where things get real, because the Street Glide is not a lightweight machine, and no amount of clever engineering changes basic physics. With a curb weight sitting around 830 pounds fully fueled, the power-to-weight ratio is nowhere near what you would find on a naked sport bike. But that comparison is unfair anyway, because this bike was never built to win a drag race. It was built to make 800 pounds of American steel feel controllable and confident, and once you understand that goal, the numbers start to make a lot more sense. Drive train belt system. A lot of people assume Harleys use a chain or a shaft drive, but the Street Glide actually runs a rubber composite belt drive, and this detail deserves more attention than it gets. A belt is quieter than a chain, needs almost no lubrication, and lasts far longer under normal use. It does not have the buttery smoothness of a shaft drive at low speed, but it also does not fling grease onto your leg the way an exposed chain would. For a touring bike meant to eat highway miles for years, this is honestly one of the smartest engineering choices Harley has stuck with. Gear shifting and clutch feel. The 6-speed gearbox on this bike is deliberately mechanical. You feel every shift with a heavy, satisfying clunk that some riders love, and others find a bit agricultural compared to smoother Japanese gearboxes. The clutch pull is moderate, manageable for most hands, but if you have smaller hands or weaker grip strength, a full day of stop-and-go city traffic might leave your fingers a little tired by evening. First to second gear is where you notice it most, that unmistakable heavy thud that tells you this is a big American, the fifth, not a light and lazy scooter transmission. Suspension front and rear. Harley upgraded the suspension significantly this generation with Showa components, giving the front end a dual bending valve fork with about 4.5 inches of travel, and rear emulsion shocks offering roughly 3 inches with tool-free preload adjustment. In real riding, this translates to noticeably better small bump absorption than older Street Glides, especially over broken city pavement. It still will not float over potholes like a fully adjustable adventure bike suspension, but for a touring cruiser, this is genuinely one of the biggest quiet improvements Harley made for 2026. Braking system deep analysis. This is where I want you to pay close attention, because braking on a heavy touring bike is not a small detail, it is a safety conversation. The Street Glide comes with linked braking, standard ABS, and Harley's cornering enhanced safety package, which means the system actually adjusts braking force based on lean angle, something that used to only exist on premium sport bikes. Combined with traction control and hill hold assist, this bike is genuinely one of the safer heavyweight cruisers you can buy today. The only real criticism is initial bite feels slightly soft compared to full sport bikes. But once you're used to it, the stopping power for a bike this heavy is honestly reassuring rather than alarming. Body positioning and riding posture. You sit low and forward on this bike, arms slightly stretched to the handlebars, feet planted forward rather than beneath you. And this posture is built entirely around comfort over hundreds of miles, not aggressive cornering. It feels relaxed almost instantly, like sinking into a recliner that happens to have 2 wheels and 106 horsepower attached to it. The trade-off is that tight, twisty mountain roads will never feel as natural on this bike as they would on something built for aggressive lean angles. Deep ergonomics and reach. Seat height sits low, comfortably reachable for most riders, including shorter ones, which instantly builds confidence at stoplights. The seat-to-peg distance is generous enough to stretch your legs without cramping on long rides, and the handlebar reach is close enough that your shoulders stay relaxed instead of straining forward. This ergonomic triangle is honestly one of the most thoughtfully tuned aspects of the entire bike, and it is a major reason riders can comfortably do 6, 7, even 8-hour days in the saddle without their back screaming by evening. Pillion comfort. For passengers, the newly redesigned one-piece seat genuinely improves things this generation, offering better support and a more natural seating position than older models. Legroom is decent, and the passenger foot peg placement avoids that painfully cramped feeling some cruisers force onto pillions. It is not a limousine back there, but compared to most cruisers on the market, your partner or friend riding behind you will actually thank you afterward instead of complaining about their knees. Weight and weight distribution. At roughly 839 pounds fueled, this is undeniably a heavy motorcycle, but Harley engineered the mass to sit low and centered, which matters enormously the moment you're rolling. Standing still, you feel every pound when maneuvering out of a tight parking spot. Moving at 10 miles per hour or above, that weight almost disappears, planting the bike to the road with a stability that lighter bikes simply cannot match on the highway. Turning radius and maneuverability. Slow-speed maneuvering is genuinely improved this generation thanks to the weight reduction Harley squeezed out of the chassis and wheel design, cutting roughly 24 pounds compared to the outgoing model. U-turns in tight parking lots still require confidence and practice because of the sheer size of the machine, but it no longer feels like wrestling a couch down the street. Give yourself a few weeks of practice, and slow parking lot maneuvers become second nature. Frame material and chassis behavior. The chassis is built around Harley's Grand American Touring platform, a steel-based structure engineered specifically to carry heavy fairings, saddlebags, and two riders without flexing under load. Steel frames are heavier than aluminum, but they offer a certain planted, unshakable feeling at highway speed that many touring riders actually prefer over the twitchier feel of lighter aluminum-framed bikes. It is not built to be flicked side to side. It is built to hold a straight, confident line for hours. Ground clearance. Ground clearance is where cruiser design philosophy shows its limits. Aggressive cornering will eventually have those floorboards or pipes kissing the pavement before you run out of tire grip, which is simply the nature of a low-slung touring cruiser. This is not a criticism unique to Harley. It is the physics of low center of gravity bikes, and most owners will never push hard enough in daily riding to actually feel it as a real limitation. Tire compound and grip. The Dunlop Harley-Davidson series tires fitted from the factory are tuned specifically for this bike's weight and touring purpose, offering confident grip in dry and reasonably wet conditions on paved roads. They are not designed to be aggressive sport touring rubber, so cold mornings need a few extra minutes of careful riding before the compound warms up properly. For the highway cruising this bike is built for, grip levels are genuinely trustworthy and predictable. Off-road performance. Let's be brutally honest here, because I won't lie to you like some channels do. This bike was never designed for gravel, mud, sand, or desert trails, and taking it there would be genuinely reckless. The low ground clearance, heavy weight, and street-focused tires make anything beyond a well-maintained gravel driveway a risky decision. If off-road capability matters to you, this entire category of touring cruiser, not just this specific bike, is simply the wrong tool for that job. Highway performance and touring comfort. This is where the Street Glide finally shows you exactly why it exists. At 75 miles an hour on an open highway, this bike feels utterly at home, stable, confident, and shockingly quiet inside that fairing bubble. Long stretches of interstate that would exhaust you on a naked bike feel almost meditative here. This is the moment. Every design decision, the weight, the seating position, the torque curve, all clicks into place and makes complete sense. Aerodynamics and wind protection. The redesigned Batwing fairing was reshaped using actual computational fluid dynamics testing, and you can genuinely feel the difference over older Street Glide generations. Helmet buffeting, that annoying head-shaking turbulence at highway speed, is noticeably reduced. Your chest and shoulders stay shielded from direct wind blast, letting you ride for hours without feeling like you're fighting an invisible wall the entire time. Fuel tank capacity and range. With a 6-gallon fuel tank and that estimated 45 mile per gallon rating, realistic range sits somewhere between 220 and 270 miles depending on how you ride. That is a comfortable window for genuine road trip planning, giving you enough range to enjoy long stretches between fuel stops without constantly watching the gauge with anxiety. Features and electronics. This generation brings the Skyline OS system, a 12.3-inch full-color touchscreen that finally feels like it belongs in 2026 rather than a decade behind competitors. Apple CarPlay integration, embedded navigation, and over-the-air software updates mean this bike's technology will not feel frozen in time the moment you ride it off the lot, which honestly used to be a fair criticism of older Harley touring models. Riding modes and technology systems, you get road, sport, rain, and a fully customizable custom mode, each altering throttle response and engine braking characteristics to match conditions or mood. Rain mode genuinely softens throttle response for slippery days, while sport sharpens everything for when you want a bit more urgency. This flexibility means the same machine adapts to a lazy Sunday cruise or a more spirited weekend ride without feeling like two completely different personalities bolted together. Dashboard and meter quality. The Skyline display itself is bright, legible even in direct sunlight, and genuinely glove-friendly for touch inputs, something older touchscreen motorcycle systems consistently failed at. Menu navigation feels intuitive after a short learning curve, and the layout options let you prioritize navigation, trip data, or media, depending on what matters most to you on any given ride. Headlight performance and visibility. LED daytime running lights, combined with integrated turn signals and a slim LED taillight, give this bike excellent visibility both for you and for other drivers noticing you on the road. Nighttime illumination is a genuine step up over older halogen setups still found on some competitor cruisers, throwing a wider, more even beam pattern that makes rural night riding noticeably less stressful. Battery type and charging system. The charging system received a meaningful upgrade this generation, now producing around 58 peak amps, roughly 21% more output than the previous 114 engine platform offered. This matters enormously if you plan on running heated grips, a heated seat, phone charging, and premium audio simultaneously on a cold winter ride without draining your battery halfway through the day. Build quality and durability. Fit and finish on this generation feels genuinely premium, from the contrast-cut wheels to the tightly integrated fairing panels, and Harley's attention to paint quality remains one of the brand's quiet strengths. Panel gaps are tight, switchgear feels solid under your fingers, and nothing rattles loose after a rough highway stretch, which speaks to real manufacturing discipline rather than just marketing polish. Reliability and long-term ownership. Harley's Milwaukee-Eight platform has years of real-world mileage behind it at this point, and owners consistently report strong long-term reliability when maintenance schedules are respected. That said, this is still a large, heavy, mechanically dense machine, and skipping oil changes or ignoring belt inspection intervals will eventually catch up with you far faster than it would on a smaller commuter bike. Maintenance cost and parts availability. Because Harley dealerships exist in nearly every corner of the world, parts availability is genuinely one of this bike's underrated strengths. Routine maintenance costs sit higher than an average Japanese cruiser, mainly due to labor rates at dealership service centers. But the sheer volume of aftermarket and OEM parts in circulation means you will rarely wait long for anything you need. After-sales service. Harley's dealer network remains one of the most extensive in the entire motorcycle industry. And that matters enormously on a long road trip when something unexpected happens 3 states away from home. Service quality does vary dealer to dealer, which is worth researching locally before you buy, but the overall infrastructure supporting this bike is genuinely stronger than most competitors can offer. Pricing for the 2026 lineup starts in the mid-$20,000 range for the standard Street Glide, climbing toward $33,000 for the limited trim with its expanded luggage and premium features, and reaching well past $40,000 if you step into CVO territory. That is a serious financial commitment, and it firmly places this bike in a category where you are paying for heritage, comfort, and technology, not just raw transportation, modifications, and luggage systems. The Grand Tour pack now holds an impressive amount of storage, combined with side cases and fairing compartments, for a total luggage capacity that genuinely supports two-up, multi-week touring without sacrificing comfort items. The aftermarket scene for this platform is enormous, meaning custom seats, exhaust systems, and touring accessories are never hard to find whenever you want to personalize your machine further. Brand reputation and rider community. Few brands on earth carry the emotional weight that Harley-Davidson does, and owning a Street Glide plugs you instantly into a massive, passionate global community of riders who will wave at you on the highway, invite you to group rides, and treat you like family at rallies you've never even heard of before. That sense of belonging is genuinely part of what you're buying here, whether or not the spec sheet ever mentions it. Environmental factors, emissions, and sound levels. This engine meets current emission standards while still delivering that unmistakable V-twin exhaust note, though it runs noticeably quieter stock than the aftermarket pipes so many owners eventually install. If you're environmentally conscious, it's worth acknowledging honestly that a bike this size and displacement will never compete with smaller, more efficient machines on emissions, and that trade-off is simply part of choosing this kind of touring experience. The final verdict and emotional closing. So let's go back to that flaw I promised you at the very beginning. The truth is, it was never really a flaw at all. It was the heat off that engine at low-speed traffic, something a lot of new owners just weren't warned about before buying. Once you know it's coming, it stops being a deal-breaker and becomes just another honest quirk of owning a big American VTYN. And that, right there, is the whole story of this bike. It is not perfect, it never claimed to be, but it delivers something rarer than perfection. It delivers a feeling. The rumble under your seat, the wave from a stranger at a gas station, the way the horizon looks different from behind that Batwing fairing at sunset. Some bikes get you from one place to another. This one turns the getting there into the entire point. Now I want to hear from you. So drop a comment below and tell me honestly, would you choose the 2026 Street Glide? Or is there another touring bike out there that's already stolen your heart, and why? If this video earned it, hit that like button, subscribe to Bikes Review Lab for more honest reviews like this one, and I'll see you in the next video.